Brent Crude hits $107 a barrel, an $18 spike in under 6 hours, and trading desks across 3 continents are hemorrhaging. The Strait of Hormuz, that 21-mile choke point carrying one-fifth of the world's daily oil supply, is now surrounded by Iranian fast attack boats. This is not a drill. 3 hours ago, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps launched a coordinated ballistic missile barrage against an Israeli military installation on the Golan Heights. The base is burning. Satellite imagery shows at least 4 direct impacts on hardened structures. And the crude oil market, the nervous system of the global economy, is convulsing in real time. The price you pay for everything is changing right now. Most people don't know why yet. Here is what I can confirm at this hour. The URGS Aerospace Force fired between 30 and 40 EMED medium-range ballistic missiles, liquid-fueled, single-warhead systems with a verified range of 1,700 kilometers and a 750-kilogram high-explosive payload from launch sites near Tabriz and Kermanshah in northwestern Iran. Their target, the IDF's 210th Bashan Division headquarters, Israel's primary armored and intelligence command post embedded in the southern Golan Heights, roughly 12 kilometers from the Syrian border. Israel's Iron Dome, designed to intercept short-range rockets and mortars, was not the relevant defense layer here. The Arrow 3 exoatmospheric interceptor, which Israel Aerospace Industries and Boeing jointly developed, engaged at least a portion of the incoming salvo at high altitude. But Pentagon sources speaking to Reuters within the last 90 minutes confirm that multiple warheads penetrated Israeli airspace and struck ground targets. The Israeli Defense Forces have not released casualty figures. That silence at this stage is itself a signal. What most outlets are not yet reporting is the location geometry. The Golan Heights strike corridor passes directly over Jordanian and Syrian airspace, meaning Iran's missiles transited sovereign territory of 2 nations without interception or authorization. Jordan's King Abdullah has issued no public statement. Damascus remains silent. That silence tells me something the headlines don't. The regional security architecture that has held since the 1994 Wadi Araba Treaty is fracturing under pressure no one anticipated would arrive this fast. And then there is the detail that changes everything about this story. This is not primarily a military event. It is an energy event. The moment those missiles struck the Golan, algorithm-driven trading systems on the Intercontinental Exchange in London triggered automatic buy orders on Brent Crude futures. Within 40 minutes, Brent jumped $9. Within 3 hours, it crossed the $100 threshold for the first time since October 2023. As I record this, it's at $107.4. West Texas Intermediate, the U.S. domestic benchmark, tracks at $101.2, up $14 on the session. These are not speculative numbers. These are contract prices that will flow directly into gasoline, diesel, jet fuel, and petrochemical feedstock costs within 72 hours. The catalyst is not the strike itself. The catalyst is the Strait of Hormuz. Iran's URG Navy, which operates independently from Iran's conventional naval forces under a parallel command structure, has deployed at least 14 fast attack craft and 2 Ghadir-class midget submarines into the strait's traffic separation scheme. The narrow shipping lane every supertanker must use to exit the Persian Gulf. Lloyd's of London, the world's oldest and most influential marine insurance market, has reclassified the entire Persian Gulf as a listed area, a war risk zone that triggers automatic premium surges on every vessel transiting the region. That single classification change adds between $300,000 and $500,000 to the insurance cost of each tanker passage. Shipping companies are already diverting around the Cape of Good Hope, adding 14 days and $1.2 million in fuel costs per voyage. Now widen the aperture. 48 hours from now, the dominoes begin falling faster. Saudi Aramco, the world's largest oil company, responsible for roughly 9.5 million barrels per day, routes nearly 90% of its exports through the Ras Tanura terminal on the Persian Gulf coast. That terminal sits 150 nautical miles from Iranian waters. If the URG sustains its naval posture, Aramco's entire export capacity becomes a hostage without a single shot fired at Saudi infrastructure. The Saudis know this. Riyadh has activated its Western Fleet Command at King Abdulaziz Naval Base in Jubail and placed its Eastern Province air defenses on their highest alert posture since the 2019 Abqaiq drone attack. United States Central Command CENTCOM, headquartered at MacDill Air Force Base in Tampa, Florida, has already repositioned the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower Carrier Strike Group from its patrol station in the Gulf of Oman to a blocking position south of the strait. That strike group carries Carrier Air Wing 3, with FA-18EF Super Hornets capable of precision strikes on Iranian coastal missile batteries within 30 minutes of launch authorization. But repositioning a carrier group is not a solution. It is a signal, and the signal says Washington believes this situation is accelerating, not stabilizing. Diplomatic channels are collapsing in parallel. I have confirmed that the U.S. State Department's back-channel communication with Tehran through the Swiss embassy in Iran, the so-called Swiss Protocol, America's only indirect line to Iranian leadership, has received no response in over 5 hours, Iran's Foreign Minister Hossein Amir Abdullahian has issued a single public statement. The era of unanswered aggression is over. That is not a diplomatic opening. That is a door slamming shut. Pull further back. The architecture of this crisis reveals something most analysts are still too cautious to say plainly. For 50 years, the global economy has operated on one foundational assumption: Persian Gulf oil flows freely. That assumption underpins the petrodollar system, the US dollar's dominance as the world's reserve currency, and the pricing stability of virtually every traded commodity on Earth. What Iran has just demonstrated, without closing the strait, without sinking a single tanker, without touching one barrel of Saudi crude, is that it can inject $18 of fear premium into the global oil price with a single military action 300 miles from the nearest oil facility. This is asymmetric economic warfare executed at a ratio that should terrify every strategist in Washington. The missiles that hit the Golan Heights cost here on an estimated $15 to $20 million total. The market disruption they triggered has already erased over $140 billion in global equity value in a single trading session. The S&P 500 dropped 2.3% in the first hour of New York trading. The FTSE 100 fell 1.9%. Japan's Nikkei 225, which opened after the strike, plunged 3.1%. Here is the question no one in Washington is asking publicly, but everyone in the Pentagon's J5 Strategic Plans Division is asking privately. What happens if Iran does this again next week? And the week after that? Not a full-scale war, not a blockade, just one precision strike every 7 to 10 days, in a different location, each one sending Brent Crude up another $10. Can the global economy absorb $130 oil? What about $150? At what price does the American consumer break? Numbers on a trading screen don't fill your gas tank, so let me bring this home. Here is what $107 Brent Crude means for a family in Ohio, a commuter in Manchester, a truck driver in Queensland. In the United States, the national average gasoline price, which sat at $3.42 per gallon yesterday, according to AAA, will cross $4.0 within 10 days if Brent holds above $100. That is not a forecast. That is a mechanical pass-through calculation based on refinery crack spreads and retail margin timing already locked into futures contracts. If Brent reaches $120, American gasoline hits $4.6. For a two-car household driving average annual miles, that is a 45 per week increase, $2,340 a year extracted directly from discretionary spending. Diesel tells an even darker story. Diesel fuels every truck that delivers every product to every shelf in every store you walk into. A $20 surge in crude translates to a 50-60 cent increase in diesel within 2 weeks. That cost does not stay with the trucking company. It cascades into food prices, into Amazon delivery surcharges, into the cost of building materials, fertilizer, and pharmaceuticals. Inflation, which the Federal Reserve has spent 2 brutal years and 11 consecutive interest rate hikes trying to crush from 9.1% back to its 2% target, reignites overnight. Fed Chair Jerome Powell's carefully engineered soft landing does not survive $107 oil. It does not even survive $100 oil sustained for 30 consecutive days. Across the Atlantic, the picture turns outright recessionary. The European Union imports 25% of its crude oil from the Middle East. Germany's industrial economy, already crippled by the loss of cheap Russian pipeline gas after the Nord Stream disruption, cannot absorb another energy shock without tipping into full contraction. European Central Bank President Christine Lagarde faces an impossible fork: raise rates to fight oil-driven inflation and crush what remains of Eurozone growth, or hold rates and watch consumer prices spiral beyond political survivability. When was the last time you checked what percentage of your retirement portfolio is exposed to energy price volatility? Because right now, tonight, that number matters more than it has in 20 years. Everything I have laid out so far is visible, trackable, on the surface. But there is one thing that almost no one is talking about right now, and it may be the most important detail of this entire crisis. 72 hours before the Golan Strike, China's State Oil Reserves Authority, the National Food and Strategic Reserves Administration, which manages Beijing's 950 million barrel strategic petroleum reserve, quietly placed purchase orders for an additional 12 million barrels of Iranian crude at a steep discount, routed through intermediary shell accounts in Malaysia and the United Arab Emirates. I have reviewed the shipping data published by tankertrackers.com and cross-referenced it with Lloyd's vessel identification records. The tankers are already loaded. They departed Karg Island, Iran's primary oil export terminal in the northern Persian Gulf, before the first missile launched. That timing forces exactly one of two conclusions. Either Beijing had no advanced knowledge and stumbled into extraordinarily fortunate positioning, or someone in Tehran told someone in Beijing what was coming, and China pre-positioned to profit from the chaos it knew would follow. If the second scenario is true, this is no longer an Iran-Israel military confrontation. It is a coordinated economic assault on Western energy stability with direct Chinese financial participation. I will be covering this China dimension in full depth in my next analysis, and what I found buried in those shipping manifests will change how you see everything happening right now. If you have stayed with me this far, you now understand more about this crisis than 95% of the people skimming headlines tonight. That is exactly why I do this, to get the full strategic picture to you faster and deeper than anyone else will. Hit subscribe so you don't miss the next analysis the moment it drops. Tell me in the comments, do you believe Iran will launch a second strike within the next 7 days? I read every single response. The price of oil is the price of everything. What happens next will not stay overseas.